The first rays of the morning sun broke over the distant hills, spilling light across the mist-covered valley where two great rivers curved toward each other. On the eastern bank stood the village of Arak-Tul, protected by a high palisade of sharpened wooden stakes and surrounded by fields of barley now tinged with gold. On the western bank lay the village of Kurn, its soil fertile but dry during the long summers. For years, the two settlements had coexisted in peace, trading grain for fish, salt for animal hides. But this year the rains had failed and the eastern river had shrunk to half its width. Tensions began to rise when rumors spread that Kurn's warriors had seized Arak-Tul's fishing boats. Miles once exchanged at the border market were now replaced by cold stares. Inside the longhouse of Arak-Tul's chieftain, the elders sat cross-legged on woven reed mats. A small fire crackled in the center, sending spirals of smoke toward the thatched roof. Torak, the chieftain, was a broad-shouldered man with a long scar running down his left cheek, a reminder of past battles. He listened intently as river guards reported the latest incident. "They didn't just take the boats," one of the guards said grimly. "They burned the nets and carved warning symbols into the trees. This is not simple theft, Torak. This is a challenge." The words hung heavy in the air. War meant lives lost, fields abandoned, and homes burned. But surrendering the river meant surrendering their future. Across the river, Kurn's leader, Regan, towered over most men. His long hair was braided into a single thick plait, his eyes sharp as obsidian. Kurn's rocky soil yielded little, and they relied heavily on the fish from the eastern river. This drought had made that dependence absolute. Regan knew Torak would never yield the water without a fight. He ordered more spears tipped with flaked stone and shields made from hardened buffalo hide. His warriors practiced new formations, rows of spearmen in front, archers behind. This would not be a skirmish in the woods, but a full confrontation on open ground. The night before battle, Arak-Tul was silent, the stillness broken only by the occasional crackle of torches. Children had been taken to a hidden cave in the hills, far from any sudden attack. Women and elders prepared piles of heavy stones on the palisade, ready to be dropped on anyone who tried to climb. Torak walked the perimeter, checking each warrior. They outnumbered Kurn slightly, but many of their weapons were worn, spear tips dulled from years of use. Their only real advantage was the high ground and their knowledge of the terrain. Late that night, Torak sat alone by the river, watching the moon's pale reflection shimmer on the water. His father's voice echoed in his mind. "Water is the blood of the earth. Those who control it, control life." Dawn came quickly, and the fog began to thin. From far away, the deep thump of Kurn's war drums echoed through the valley, slow and heavy like the footsteps of a giant. From behind the western tree line, Kurn's warriors emerged in disciplined formation, their shields catching the rising sun. Behind them, archers knocked their arrows. Torak gave a silent signal. From atop Arak-Tul's watchtowers, hidden archers began to take aim, their bowstrings taut. The first arrow flew, slicing, through the morning air and struck a Kurn warrior in the thigh. He stumbled but kept moving, his comrades closing ranks around him. The battle began with a roar. Kurn's archers released their arrows in a black wave, the shafts whistling as they struck the palisade and the ground around it. Arak-Tul's defenders responded in kind, their arrows finding gaps in the enemy's shields. The clash of stone-tipped spears against wood rang out as the first wave of Kurn's warriors reached the palisade. Some tried to climb, only to be struck by falling rocks. Others hacked at the stakes with stone axes, splinters flying. Torak fought in the thick of it, his spear thrusting through a gap and finding an opponent's chest. The man fell without a sound, disappearing under the rush of feet. Despite the defense, Kurn's persistence began to show results. A section of the palisade near the river weakened under repeated strikes. Torak shouted for reinforcements, but Kurn's warriors pushed through before they could arrive. Spilled into the outer fields where tall barley stalks were trampled underfoot. The air was thick with dust, the metallic scent of blood mingling with the smell of crushed grain. Women from Arak-Tul hurled stones from the safety of the wall. While older men armed with clubs joined the fray to protect the gap, Regan himself entered the battle, wielding a long spear capped with a gleaming copper pointa, rare treasure in this age of stone. His strikes were precise and deadly, felling to Arak-Tul warriors in quick succession. Torak saw him across the field, and their eyes locked. The noise of battle seemed to fade for a heartbeat. With a shout, Torak charged, his spear angled low. The two leaders clashed in a spray of dust, their weapons striking with such force that both men staggered. Swung again, but Torak parried and drove his shoulder into him, sending him to the ground. The fall of their leader sent a ripple through Karn's ranks. Some warriors hesitated, glancing toward the river as if weighing retreat. Torak seized the moment, rallying his men with a cry that rose above the din. Drive them back to the water. Arak-Tul's warriors surged forward, pushing the enemy toward the shallows. Archers rained arrows from above, and the once tight Kurn formation began to splinter. Those who tried to stand and fight were overwhelmed. Those who fled toward the river found it choked with struggling bodies and overturned boats. By midday, the valley was quiet again, save for the cries of the wounded and the slow murmur of the river. The ground was littered with broken weapons and the fallen from both sides. Torak stood at the edge of the water, his chest heaving, watching. The last of Kurn's survivors limped toward the western hills. The river flowed on, indifferent to the blood it carried. Victory had come at a high price, friends buried, homes damaged, fields ruined, yet Torak knew the truth his father had spoken. Control of the river meant the survival of his people. And in this age, survival was the only victory that mattered.